Hi, and welcome to another episode of Destination Truth. I'm your host, Tyler Warden, and today I want to tell you how progressivism is the new religion of the young and dumb. Before we get started, I think it's important I share some of my credentials in the subject, and for those of you who don't know me, I was actually raised extremely religiously. I was raised Mormon, and so up until the age of 19 or 20 years of age, I spent a large amount of time studying the Book of Mormon and the Bible, and both of which I believe have some real wisdom to them, and I believe that they're both the Word of God. That being said, I even went as far as to serve my church by doing a mission. You can see some pictures here of me serving my mission in Russia, and so I learned Russian for this purpose. That being said, I think it's important to understand that when I was in Russia serving as a missionary, I came across just about every religion known to man, because Russia only opened to the West and other religions in the world in like 1991, and that was a progressive, slow movement of allowing certain religions into the country. The Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons were the first two, I believe, to enter the country, and so they have a relatively strong foothold in the country, but compared to Russian Orthodox or Pravoslavnes, they're really marginal numbers of people. So what else is very prevalent out in Russia is actually Islam. So Muslims are also very numerous in different parts of Russia. Alright, that all being said, let's get into some definitions as to what religion is. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, there's numerous definitions, but let's start with one that is probably the most currently well established and understood belief in what religion is. The belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. That's one. 2, a particular system of faith and worship. And 3, a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. Now, the second and third definition are what make me believe that progressivism is in fact the new religion of the young and dumb. So let's get into it. What are some of the doctrines of progressivism? I believe that the doctrine actually comes from just about everything in the mainstream at this present moment in time. That is, everything that's controlled and curated by central powers. That is television. That is the entire music industry. That is, of course, politics. And of course, that means public schools and universities as well. When children and young people, like myself not too long ago, enter universities, we are basically forced to accept new doctrines wholesale, because if we do not get passing grades. For example, if you're given a textbook by your university professor, it is not your place to question the validity of what he is teaching you. It is only your place to learn, memorize, answer questions on a test, pass the class, and wash your hands of it. And literally that's kind of what schools are built to do these days as well, by the way. They're not actually trying to teach you long-lasting, interesting information that you'll use throughout your life. They're trying to get you to learn to memorize and rinse, repeat, basically. They don't want you to actually learn things that are worth learning. So, when I was in university, and I went to one of the most liberal schools in the entire country, San Francisco State University, I had a professor for critical thinking once actually using a textbook that literally taught that the cause of homosexuality was most likely biological. And the reason being is that there's a particular hormone blocker that females naturally produce more of the more male children they have. So if you have multiple male children, especially in a row, the more children you have, the more likely they the more likely they will become homosexual. So I am the 6th child of a family with 5 boys. I am the 5th boy. I have only one sister. So, because no one questioned anything in that class, doctrine-wise, and I'm calling it doctrine because I knew it was not founded in hard, good science, with just common sense, because you can look at the references in the book and you'll find like one study, and it's usually like a psychology study, not like a science-based study. I felt the need to raise my hand and say, sorry, do you actually want us to know this for the test? Because this can't be true. Because I am the 5th child in a family with, I am the 6th child of a family with 5 boys, and I am categorically not homosexual. And so my teacher then had to spend like 20 minutes just backpedaling and being like, oh, well, you know, this stuff is, you know, kind of like mostly true, but we don't know for sure, that we're lacking some science, but it's coming, it's gonna, you know, it'll be proven, and obviously there's gonna be outliers, and you're just an outlier. And it's like, no, I know plenty of people that come from families with many boys. I have one of my childhood good friends was the 10th child in a family of 10, and there's 5 girls and 5 boys. But before he was born, there's 3 boys in a row. Well, he was the 3rd boy, but still, that's another example of him. According to the class, he would have had nearly a 100% chance of being a homosexual, and I would have had a 120% chance of being homosexual, because the actual statistic given in the textbook was something like 30% increase per boy in a row. So if you have a 2nd boy in a row, there's about a 60% chance they'll be a homosexual. And if you have a 3rd boy, that's a 90% chance. And your 4th boy in a row, well, they're just going to be gay. You know? Anyways, it's categorically false. So, I bring that all up because the left is teaching you doctrine. It is not founded in science. It is not founded anywhere. It is just religious belief. And they're making you buy it wholesale based on beliefs. You don't actually have hard science, but because you learned it in university, you believe it because you have to believe it. Now, on top of that, it's also being pounded into us by politicians, by the music industry, by TV. All of these things together are creating a solid structure or a religion that basically forces everyone that's young to behave a specific way. And I'm going to get into some of the behaviors and doctrines and beliefs of this new religion of progressivism or leftism. And those words are going to be used synonymously because those who are a progressivist is also a leftist, and leftist is easier to say than a progressivist. So, anyways, going on. This doctrine is all around us, and those who do not buy into it are being labeled heretics, blasphemers. Just look at what they're doing to Trump, for example. The number one reason why they hate Trump so much is because he is, in fact, heretical in nature. He will not use politically correct language. And politically correct language is basically one of the commandments of being a progressivist. You must use politically correct language. Or rhetoric. Like, if you actually get into a good debate with anyone on the left, you'll find that the number one thing that they have, that they oppose Trump on, is his rhetoric, and not so much anything else, because they do not actually know very many things about him. Now, the scary thing about this religion of the left is that there is no written doctrine until it is passed into law. Until that point in time, it is simply just words out there from crazy professors and feminists and politicians. And they just kind of go around in the ether, and eventually, when it gets to the politicians with a big enough crowd behind it, they kind of just push it into doctrine that is actually state mandated. And so the scariest thing about this is that this religion does not aim to convince everyone. It is a lot like Islam in the sense that it will force you to obey its commandments when it gets enough power. And it is synonymous with communism and Islam, honestly. That being said, today there are great examples of this happening right now, such as the basically the trial of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. His hearing is basically a hearing on blasphemy. the left is going to simply try to find a way to make the public agree that he is a blasphemer. If they can get him to say something that the masses do not agree with, such as, we should undo Roe versus Wade, or something that can upset the masses, then they will be able to pull the plug on him. So that's currently one of their game plans, and this is going to be used time and time again, rinse and repeat style, against any opposition that the left or the progressivists or the communists have. I also just want to note that the scary thing about the doctrine is that you cannot fight it if it is not written somewhere. It's basically capable of being manipulated and distorted and bastardized in any form of way until it is basically worded well enough that the public will accept it. And the thing about this whole religion, by the way, is that it is in fact decentralized. There's not some centralized force, and so these people are coming together ideologically on their own, and so that's why they cannot have a written doctrine. It has to be coming from the feminist leaders and the university professors and the politicians, and they have to think it over and debate it over as basically an entire society within America until it can be written into law and accepted. Okay, so that's the scary thing, is that it's really hard to fight this stuff, because until they have the wording right, or they have some political headline that they can use to push it down everyone's throat, then they will not really talk about it as though it's some kind of doctrine. But once they have it as law, then it's law, and you have to obey, or you could be fined or thrown in jail, or sent to a gulag potentially. So by now, hopefully some of you are wondering, how is this a religion and not just a political belief? Well, the reason why I say it is in fact a religion is because I believe this is faith-based and not based on anything that is scientific or actually verifiable. So for example, Trump is a fascist, or Trump is a Nazi, or Trump is a totalitarian dictator. None of these things are actually founded on fact. Trump may not like the mainstream media because it is owned outright by the left and it lies constantly, which is verifiable. But he does not try to take their TV licenses away. He does not try to silence them. He does not have people assassinated like the Clintons. Also, doctrine of the left says things like there is no actual biological differences, and that everything is actually just a social construct. This is categorically false. Look at any two white people, any two black people, any two Asian people, any two anything people of a similar race or ethnic group, and you'll find that they do not look identical. And because they do not look identical, thus you have biological differences. It's called DNA. So, the very fact that that's a thing, and you can come up with literally almost unlimited differences in humans based on biology and nothing else, then you're going to be basically, you're going to require a insane zealot-style religious belief to believe that those differences don't exist. It's a social construct. And the sad thing is, if you actually talk to these people, most often they understand what you're saying when you say, no, biology exists. They understand biology exists, but at the same time, they've been taught, and thus they believe that it is a social construct, and that gender and sex is also a social construct. And so they're starting to believe religiously, based on no science, that it is morally good for you to raise your children in a sexual or gender neutral manner. I find this absolutely reprehensible and downright evil, because children and childhood is sacred in my book. In my book, if you do not strive to give your children a good childhood where they can learn to make good decisions, then you are basically setting them up for a life of sorrow and misery, which is what Satan wants for everyone. And since I mentioned it, I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. I do believe that this is yet again another religion founded by Satan, just like communism and Islam. So, if he cannot conquer this country with communism because of how our Constitution is written, then he will find another way. And I do believe that this progressivism is that new way. And Islam will also never take America, because America is free and we are a freedom-loving people. Someone like myself, for example, would rather die than let communism or Islam overtake this country. However, they're starting something new. They're trying something new that hasn't been done before. Progressivism to an extreme. Talking Sodom and Gomorrah style. Okay, so that all being said, some more similar beliefs, religious beliefs, mind you, that are not founded in fact at all, would be things like Hillary is a good person, or Hillary is not guilty of any crimes, when categorically hundreds of people in public office can say that she's guilty of many crimes, and that if someone that had not done what was needed and was not on the good old boy category of politician that has done their due diligence to get, basically whitewashed anytime they do anything wrong, they're going to have people taking care and cleaning up their mistakes. If it hadn't been her, many people would have gone to jail for doing very similar things, such as the server in the Clinton library that was holding state secrets, and lying to Congress multiple times. So there's multiple reasons why she's guilty, not to mention that if you don't already know about the Clinton body count, you should really Google the Clinton body count and watch at least 1 hour, or honestly I'd say like 10 hours of videos on this subject matter, because it is, if you're a detective, you'll easily understand that you always look at motive first. Like, who has the motive to do something and who benefits. Like, that is the number one direction a investigator takes. Who benefits from X happening? X being the death of someone or the silencing of someone or whatever. But Clinton's body count is up north of about 125 people now. This video is not about that, so Google that on your own, please. There's many good videos about it, so I'm not going to be reporting on it anytime soon, because it's just wasted effort if I do it on my own. Anyway, guys, I think I've hit this enough, but there's a ton of religious style beliefs that simply are not founded in fact in any way. They're basically just opinions that have gone so mainstream that they're just accepted religiously. Another good example is that feminism is actually good for women. Feminism actually leads to happier adulthood. It doesn't. It is a wholesale lie, fed to most young women in universities and by TV and the media, and maybe even politicians, but mostly the media and TV and universities. But you cannot find a lonelier and more sad and pathetic sometimes group of people than basically third wave feminists that are past the age of 40, because there's no way they're having kids. There's no way they're going to find a husband that will actually love them. They're going to be alone forever, and they're going to have to find a way to entertain themselves till the age of maybe 100 years old, because women live a long time nowadays, especially in a country like this with so much freedom that you're allowed to get really good products that help you stay healthy because of competition. Anyways, and that whole subject's another subject I won't get into. So let's get into some of their doctrine. I'm going to share what I think are probably some of their core beliefs, and feel free, this is going to be the fun part, feel free to write what you think are some of their core doctrines in the notes below, because I think there's a lot more than that I haven't thought of. But here's a list of over 10 that I have thought of that I believe are core values of leftist or progressive people. 1. Thou shalt not doubt leftist doctrine. 2. Thou shalt not use common sense. 3. Thou shalt always exalt females over males. 4. Thou shalt praise LGBTQIAAP individuals over all others and call them brave, special, etc., and basically say they're the most amazing people and that they're heroes, etc., etc., etc. 5. Thou shalt always seek victimhood status whenever possible. 6. Thou shalt always blame cis-white men or cis-white scum for all of your failures in life. 7. Thou shalt always strive to smash the patriarchy. 8. Thou shalt always virtue signal whenever possible, which will earn you entry to Valhalla, which you're not allowed to say because that's cultural appropriation. 9. Thou shalt not espouse blasphemous beliefs and must always publicly disavow them by virtue signaling. And 10. Thou shalt not pass judgment of any kind on behavior of any kind. All behavior must be accepted as lifestyle. "11. Thou shalt not condemn Islam. 12. Thou shalt condemn Christianity. 13. Thou shalt be nihilistic as fuck." That's what I have, guys. I came up with 13, and that last one, the nihilist one, I cannot tell you how true that is in my opinion. I do believe that the praising of people like Kurt Cobain is a great indicator of how much they praise nihilism. And the problem with nihilism is that it is the core problem with our entire society right now. Without religious belief, without family, nihilism is prevailing and making people basically check out of life. So, like, just the public display of supporting people like Kurt Cobain, who killed himself mostly due to nihilism. He's an extremely nihilistic individual. That is a sign of that is basically like showing you like this is a saint. Like the way the left has exalted him to the priesthood class post-mortem is like elevating him post-mortem to sainthood. And the left is doing this left and right with individuals, even Republicans like the Bush family. They're like, you know what? We were a little rough on them. They were good after all. Compared to Trump, they're saints. They're so great. And that's just because they don't disagree with leftist doctrine for the most part. They're still globalists. They're still basically part of the war party. And if you don't watch my videos, you should know that I don't believe that there actually is real partisanship in this country. It's just one party. It's called the war party. And the only things that they disagree with that make this charade or theater act of Republicans versus Democrats, left versus right, all that's a charade, and they're debating like very simple things like whether women should have control over their bodies or women should be able to vote. Like everyone agrees with that now for the most part. So it's like the Republican Party has basically died. They have nothing going for themselves. So the lasting Republicans today, they're basically all just like, they're leftists now. They really are. And that's why the leftists are like, you know what, they're good. They really were good. And this is the reason why we have Trump basically disavowing people that are on the right. It's because they're not truly Republicans. They're not truly conservatives. They're just wolves in sheep clothing. They're just part of the patriarchy that is that which makes up the entire doctrine of the left nowadays. Okay, so I've got one more thing I want to share with you. If you recall, Vladimir Lenin once said, religion is the opium of the people. And I believe it still is, which is why we see virtue signaling all over the place. I want to explain briefly what this religion of the left looks like in real life. So I live in San Francisco, where it is the dominating religion. And you see it everywhere. And literally, if you go out on the town, if you go do just about anything, like, it comes up. Trump is a fascist, racist, scum. We gotta fight the patriarchy together. We have to smash the fash. You know, all these things, they are actually like, it's actually being said. Like, if you live in the Midwest or something and you don't hear this or see this regularly, you should know that people out here, they're talking about this stuff regularly, and whenever given the chance, they virtue signal. They love especially women, from my experience out here, they love the opportunity to say, oh, I work in theater. We have a bunch of really great gay men that play the parts of men and women, which is just great because back in the good old days, theater in England was all done by men anyway, so it's good. It's like, how many times do you have to flip-flop things in your head to get there mentally, to be like, oh, it's good because I can do a mental backflip and say we don't need women in this anyway, even though women are better than men. But if men are gay, they're okay. It's really mind-boggling, the kinds of mental backflips people on the left will do. And they'll talk about it, and they'll virtue signal, and they'll love any opportunity they can find to basically say that they are opposed to the patriarchy, or Republicans, or Trump, and Trump's evil, and anyone who voted for him is stupid or evil. This stuff is being said all the time, and this is the zeitgeist of our time, and we have to fight it. Okay? We have to fight this, and we should not allow this religion to basically take over our country. And I do believe it's a religion, and I think after this video, hopefully you'll be convinced a little bit more that these beliefs that a lot of the people on the left have are religious beliefs and not founded in any kind of fact. Unless they can prove it's founded in fact, we should not allow them to basically make laws based on emotions, based on their religion, their religious beliefs, their belief system, if you will. So, that all being said, guys, in closing, I just want to say that it was written in the Bible that Christians will be hated again, but I want to say that this country was founded by Christians, and we have to protect it. Anyone who believes in God and in His Son, Jesus Christ, I ask you to talk with fellow Christians and talk about these types of subjects, because it's important to know what opposition is coming for us, because the left is on the rise. It is not retreating. It is progressing, and it is going to get worse before it gets better. And older folks like my parents are just begging for the second coming at this point, and you can't count on it. You need to do half the battle, and maybe God will help us on the rest. But I just want to say, so do not let this cleverly disguised form of Satanism take over our country. The regressive left is forcing the new religious dogma of progressivism down all young people's throats that are attending public schools. So I say we need to come together to fight and protest whenever possible these new religious institutions. And thanks to a new movement, a grassroots movement that is much like Project Veritas, it's called Film Your Socialist Professors. I think we will have the evidence in a short amount of time. It'll be what we need to actually fight the left. And we need to start protesting this wherever and whenever possible. And we need to get the press, or make the press, required to report on it. Okay? So we need to start making our own protests. Now, if you've been watching my videos, I will say that I am very disappointed and saddened by libertarians and people on the right, conservatives and religious folk all alike, because when Alex Jones was silenced, I made a call to try to get somebody out there to do a protest with me of YouTube and Google, and I got 0 responses. 0. So that tells me that the right has no bite at this moment. They are too scared and weak, and I shame you for that. I am very upset for anyone who's that weak that won't even leave a comment to say, hey, I wish I could be there with you, but I live too far away. You haven't done anything, okay? That's not okay. You gotta have a little bit more bite than that, guys. You gotta be willing to do something. Just because everyone that are conservatives have jobs and do things in life doesn't mean that you can just let your country go to shit wholesale overnight because you're not willing to take the time, half day or something to go protest. So, I'm calling you again to be more active and to do things and to try to heal this country. So anyways, this video is already long enough. I think I made some good points. Hopefully I've convinced you just how bad this new religious dogma is, because it's based on lies, lies from Satan as always, and it is not based on anything that I consider to be factually based. The entire dogma of the left is just Satanism in disguise, basically, and it always leads to the same outcome, which is a very, very hateful and depressing late adulthood full of hate. Okay? And that's because that's what Satan wants. He's miserable, so he wants you to be miserable, and once you're miserable, you want everyone else to be miserable like you. So you'll tell them to do what you did, even though what you did made you really depressed, and now you're an empty nester with no kids at all, and you're alone without a spouse at all, and you're incapable of finding one because your actual ideologies in your head are evil, man-hating ideologies. So, you know, it benefits globalists, so they're going to keep pushing it because globalists don't want you to have babies. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please, please, please give me a like and subscribe. I've been literally silenced off of this platform, so you are one of very few that are seeing this video if you're seeing it right now. If you're watching this on DTube, more importantly, you guys, I need your support. Please re-steam this video. I want people to see that the left is trying new things that have never been tried before, and they're going to try to take over this country one way or another. Whether they can get communism in power or not, they're going to try it. But if they can't, they're going to try something else, and that is this religious belief of progressivism. And it's why you see hundreds of feminists getting together with Islamists that are the opposite of feminists, but it just religiously beliefs just tell them that they can work together somehow, and they can't. So anyways, guys, I hope you like this video. I hope you feel like you kind of learned something out of it. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much. And again, please re-steam if you're watching this on DTube. It would mean the world to me. Thank you, guys. Take care.